increase in the debt ceiling to allow us some time to continue this conversation, because it is time for solutions. The Democrats' unwillingness to have this conversation has actually resulted in a delay and an ongoing government shutdown, and it's hurting the American people. It's gone on too long. We hope that the president will choose negotiation over crisis, leadership over inaction, and dialogue over silence. It's time to solve our problems.
To the Steve Malzberg Show, folks, and that was Kathy Rogers, of course. Earlier today at the Republican press conference that was held, Kathy McMorris Rogers, of course, part of the leadership of the Republican Party, where it was announced that the Republicans in the House would be willing to extend the debt ceiling for 6 weeks, keep the government closed down, and during that 6 weeks period, the president and both sides would talk about everything related to the budget. Joining us now is Kansas Congressman Tim Huelskamp. Hello, Congressman. How are you?
Doing well, Steve.
Before we get to this, being that you serve on the Veterans Affairs Committee in the House, I just want to ask you, we just got word that the Senate passed what you guys passed yesterday in the House, which was a bill to specifically fund the military death benefits that the Pentagon was denying the families of those who made the ultimate sacrifice. Just want to make it clear, Congressman Gohmert had told me last Friday when this news first broke, you all were under the impression that when you funded the military pay at the very beginning, which was signed by the president, that this was included, correct?
Absolutely, and we were under the impression, and have been for decades, that you wouldn't shut down national monuments and memorials in the middle of a shutdown. I think it's outrageous, the things that this administration's been attempting to do. But to pass a bill to make sure our veterans get paid, we did that right away in the House. We've done a dozen different bills to deal with these very specific issues created by the administration. Yeah,
okay, and so all that's left now is for the president to sign it. Now, are you going, sir, to meet with the president? I'm a little confused about who has been invited, if it's the entire caucus or the leadership, and then I heard it was the caucus and the leadership wasn't coming because it wasn't a negotiating session, just talking to by the president. What is going on?
That is a great question. We received no invite. I don't know who actually did. The president claims he invited folks through our leadership, but apparently our leadership said that the rest of us were disinvited, so I don't know. But at the end of the day, you don't have to sit down in a room. Just put something down on paper, Mr. President. Tell us what your offer is, what you'd like to see, instead of just saying you're not going to negotiate. But frankly, what I'm hearing out of leadership, that we're going to add another couple $100 billion in debt or whatever it is in exchange for time. I mean, we don't have time. I think it's now's the time to solve our problems. We're against a wall. The debt ceiling is not going to be crossed next week. I mean, that's absolutely a made-up figure by the administration. We cannot default. Joe Biden said as much, but no, as of now, I don't think we ought to wait 6 weeks. Let's solve it now. We are already running a $700 billion deficit, and we're already into a new year and losing money every day. It's time for action.
All right, so you are then against the proposal, at least there is nothing in writing yet, as Jay Carney keeps saying, but you're against the verbal proposal expressed by John Boehner, which, again, would raise the debt ceiling for 6 weeks and then in the interim keep the government closed and use that, I guess, as the leverage to talk to the president, keep him at his word, or he'll promise to talk and work everything out in that 6 weeks period. You would vote no on that?
As it stands now, but again, we have no language, hadn't even been provided a Republican conference. The proposal was brand new this morning. I actually did not make the Republican conference. I had veterans at the World War II Memorial, wanted to make sure they got in on a long trip from Kansas, wanted to make sure they got to see their memorial. But as it stands now, no, it's time for action, not time for more time. And we can get this thing done in a couple days if everybody would come to the table. But again, that's what our leadership is trying to determine. What would it take to get the president to the table? But this idea that, let's just borrow another, a couple $100 billion and somehow that'll be a good thing, I don't think so.
Do you have any ideas or what you would suggest? I know you say solve it now, but you say leadership is trying to get the president to the table. An unprecedented situation where, even though he says this is unprecedented, the truth is every president has come to the table. Do you have anything you would like to see John Boehner say to the president to get him to the table other than what he is apparently offering?
Well, I think we ought to still continue to pass bills to keep the government open, and we passed more than a dozen of those. And Harry Reid, I was double-checking for certain, but as of 2 days ago, they hadn't had a vote since that shutdown started. I mean, it's as if the whole Senate's on furlough and that the president is not engaging. I don't know how you, again, give him 6 more weeks of borrowing money is somehow going to force the president to negotiate, as most Americans would demand. So, yeah, we'll keep doing this. And again, the president said, hey, kids aren't getting their cancer treatment. House took care of that. The World War II Memorial, House took care of that.
Veterans.
FAA, veterans took care of that.
Yep.
Death benefits for our soldiers, we took care of that. And the president still says, no, I will not negotiate one single thing. His final offer was this: give me everything I want, we'll sign it all into law, and then I'll negotiate sometime in the future, which is silly if it wasn't so serious.
Right, and we're talking, by the way, to Kansas Republican Tim Huelskamp here on the Steve Malzberg Show. No, not only are all those bills sitting in Harry Reid's Senate, and the first vote, you were right, but until today when they did pass the military death funding, they had not voted on anything. But the president has said that he would veto it anyway, which is just bizarre on its face, to be honest with you. So let me ask you about the veterans. Is the World War II Memorial open right now?
It's open if you're there to, quote, practice your Second Amendment activities. There's a sign up there. Your First Amendment activities. So I guess if you're the Constitution is not there to protect us to use our federal lands. We shouldn't have an amendment to the Constitution. No, it's only open through one narrow gate. If you can slip in there by 4 guards who are standing there eyeing everybody coming in and apparently are demanding to see whether you're there under the First Amendment or something else. And so it's barely open. That's absolutely outrageous.
You mean they're asking, for instance, I don't know if any of your constituents arrived in a wheelchair, but if someone who arrived in a wheelchair or otherwise at World War II veterans, they're asked what exactly?
I don't know what they were asked. I came in at the end of the line, but there's a sign up there that says, the message is, you don't belong here, quote, unless you're here under the First Amendment, which is kind of a bizarre statement. This is an open-air memorial. You can get in on all sides except for the barricades they put up. And so, yeah, we did get in. Nobody got turned away, but it shouldn't take a member of Congress to be standing there to get by 4 security guards that I think were probably on overtime duty in order to protect the monument from these veterans who built the darn thing. And so that's the politics of pain that's going on with the families of deceased soldiers. We can go through a long list. We had the case over the weekend where numerous Catholic priests were denied access to a chapel because, quote, it's a shutdown. I guess the First Amendment does not extend to freedom of religion, and that's coming out as well. So, I don't think it's time now to say, Mr. President, you get whatever you want. Now's the time. Let's debate the future of Obamacare. Let's debate the fact we had a $700 billion deficit last year, and doing the same thing in a, quote, clean CR is another $700 billion in debt. That's unacceptable.
All right. And Congressman, just one final question. I don't know how many people you've talked to, your fellow House members on your side of the aisle. What's the feeling on what John Boehner and the leadership, quote-unquote, proposed today?
Really mixed reaction, but again, it's always trust but verify. Show us the language. What exactly does it mean when you're going to raise the debt ceiling for 6 weeks? How much can the president borrow? It's my understanding there's no number in there. There's kind of a date. That could be hundreds of billions of dollars of new debt. For what reason? For time. For the president to decide maybe in 6 weeks he's not going to negotiate. I don't know how that changes much of anything other than just adds more debt for our children and grandchildren.
And I lied. One more question, because you led me to this. If, in fact, it becomes apparent that the majority of Republicans would not be happy with this, would you expect Congressman Boehner to bring it anyway, or and violate the Hastert rule, or stick to what he has been saying all along, that he would not do something like that?
I fear he would bring it to the floor anyway, given what I heard, the comments that he made in conference this morning. Again, I wasn't there because I was with
right.
my veterans, but at the end of the day, this is about the future of our country. It's not about World War II memorials and death benefits. That's the pain for the presidency. It's about what are we going to do? We're off track in this country. Obamacare is a massive increaser in debt of $800 billion over the next decade. And what we're going to do about it is the real question. And we're on track for bankruptcy if we're not careful. And it's not going to be default in a few weeks, but 2 or 3 years from now, we will regret if we do not get our spending under control.
Congressman, thank you very much. I hope you'll come back, sir.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Tim Huelskamp from Kansas. Very interesting here on the Steve Malzberg Show. We're going to come back. Susan Ferrecchio, Chief Congressional Correspondent, Washington Examiner, is waiting in the wings, and she'll give us her latest take on where we are and who's going to the White House, because Congressman Huelskamp wasn't invited, and he doesn't know why. When we return on the Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax.